They say cities die slowly, but London burned to ash in 3 days. Thomas Fariner smelled smoke at 1 in the morning. Not the usual kind, the bread-baking, coal-fire warmth that filled Pudding Lane every night. This was different, sharper, closer. He opened his eyes to orange light crawling up the walls of his bakery like living fingers. By the time he woke his family, the ceiling was already falling. They escaped through an upstairs window. Their maid didn't. She froze at the top of the stairs, too afraid to jump. The flames took her first. By dawn, they'd taken 20 houses. By noon, 300. And London, the greatest city in the world, realized it had no idea how to stop burning. September 1666. The summer had been brutal. Months without rain. The kind of heat that turns timber into kindling and patience into panic. London was a maze of wooden houses stacked so close you could shake hands across the street from opposite windows. Thatched roofs, tar-soaked beams, centuries of construction piled on top of Roman ruins, all of it dry as bone. The fire moved like it was hunting. It jumped from Pudding Lane to Fish Street Hill. It swallowed warehouses filled with oil, tallow, spirits, anything that could accelerate the end. The Thames should have stopped it. Instead, the wind pushed the flames west, toward the heart of the city, toward St. Paul's Cathedral, toward everything that made London matter. People ran with whatever they could carry: paintings, coins, a single shoe. Some tried to bury their valuables in gardens, thinking the earth would protect them. The fire dug them up anyway. Others stood on rooftops and watched their city become a horizon of light. Samuel Pepys, a clerk with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, climbed the Tower of London at midnight on the second day. He wrote later that the fire looked like a single burning arch stretching across the entire city. He said it was the most beautiful and terrible thing he'd ever seen. He said he could hear the stones of churches cracking from the heat, exploding, turning into shrapnel. He also said he buried his wine and his Parmesan cheese in his garden before he fled. Even terror makes room for the absurd. The king himself, Charles II, rode through the streets trying to organize firefighting brigades. They used hooks to pull down houses, creating gaps the flames couldn't cross. But the fire was faster than strategy. It leapt across alleys. It traveled underground through cellars and sewers. It turned London into a geometry problem no one could solve. By the third day, 80% of the city was gone. St. Paul's Cathedral, the stone masterpiece that had stood for 600 years, melted. Its lead roof liquefied and poured into the streets like mercury. The heat was so intense that the stones themselves burned. Witnesses said the cathedral glowed white, then red, then collapsed inward like a dying star. The air itself was fire. And then on the fourth day, the wind stopped. Not slowed, stopped. The flames had nothing left to chase. They flickered, dimmed, died. London didn't put out the fire. The fire simply ran out of city. 87 churches destroyed, 13,000 homes. Tens of thousands homeless. The medieval heart of London, erased. What remained looked like a war had passed through, except there'd been no enemy, just a baker's oven and a dry summer. But here's the part they don't tell you. Only 6 people officially died in the Great Fire. 6, out of a city of 500,000, crammed into burning wooden houses with nowhere to go but the river. 6 recorded deaths. Historians think the real number was higher. Bodies burned beyond recognition. Poor people who didn't matter enough to count. But still, for a disaster that consumed an entire city, death was almost an afterthought. What died was the idea of London, and what was born in the ashes was something no one had imagined. Before the fire, London was a medieval relic, streets so narrow you couldn't fit a cart through, buildings that leaned on each other like drunks. No plan, no order, just centuries of people building wherever they could, however they wanted. It was chaos held together by habit. After the fire, the city had a choice: rebuild the same mess, or start over. Christopher Wren saw the opportunity before the ashes cooled. He was a scientist, an astronomer. He'd never designed a building in his life, but he saw London's blackened skeleton and imagined something new. He sketched wide boulevards, open squares, a city that breathed, the kind of place where fire couldn't hide. He proposed tearing down what little remained and redesigning the entire street grid. A capital worthy of empire. His plans were visionary, radical, and immediately rejected because people wanted their old streets back. Property owners refused to surrender their land. They wanted to rebuild exactly where they'd been, even if it meant recreating the same fire trap. Wren's grand vision died in committee meetings and property disputes, but he got one consolation prize: St. Paul's Cathedral. The old one was unsalvageable, so they gave Wren the job of building a new one. He spent the next 35 years designing a dome that would become the icon of London, a structure so perfectly balanced it looks like it's floating. He died before it was finished, but the dome still stands. And every time you see a photo of London's skyline, you're looking at the vision of a man who turned disaster into legacy. After 1666, London banned wooden buildings in the city center, stone and brick only. Roofs had to be tile or slate. Streets were widened, not by much, but enough. Building codes were written. Fire insurance was invented. Before the Great Fire, if your house burned down, you prayed. After, you paid a company to rebuild it. The fire companies gave you a metal badge to hang on your wall. If flames broke out, only the company that insured you would come help. Houses without badges burned while firefighters watched. Capitalism built on ashes. But something stranger happened too. The fire cleaned the city. Before 1666, London was a plague pit. The Black Death had ravaged it a year earlier, killing 100,000 people. The streets were open sewers. Disease lived in the timber and thatch. The fire sterilized all of it. When London rebuilt, it rebuilt healthier. Fewer plagues, better drainage. Wider streets meant air could move. People could breathe. The fire killed the city and saved the people. London rebuilt, but it rebuilt as itself. The Great Fire became a ghost in the architecture. You can feel it in the brick, in the way St. Paul's dome catches the light, rising from a city that should have stayed dead. People forget that destruction is part of creation. The fire didn't interrupt London's story, it was the story. The hinge point between medieval and modern. London burned for 3 days in 1666, but it's been rebuilding ever since. And when you walk those streets today, past the double-decker buses and the tourists and the steel skyscrapers, you're walking through a place that died and chose to rise. And every September, historians remember the night a baker forgot his oven and changed the world. If you thought London's fire was wild, wait till you hear about the night Pompeii vanished in 4 hours. Subscribe so you don't miss it.